People will push you, insult you, try to break you. The world expects you to fight back. But what if I told you the moment you stop reacting, the real power begins? Listen closely. This is how you win without ever throwing a punch. True power lies in restraint. It is a power that the world rarely teaches, that society often mistakes for weakness. From a young age, we are conditioned to react, to answer insults with insults, to defend ourselves with equal force, to show the world that we will not be stepped on or overlooked. We are told that strength is measured in volume, in the ability to shout over others, in the rapidity of our retaliation. And yet, if we look closely at the lives of those who are genuinely powerful, those who leave a mark on the world not by confrontation, but by influence, we see a different truth emerging. True power is silent. True power does not need to make noise to prove its existence in the chaos of conflict. True power is measured in restraint, in the ability to pause, to step back, and to choose not to engage when the world expects us to. Restraint is not passivity. It is not surrender. It is an active, conscious choice to rise above the immediate impulse to strike back, to resist the primal urge that tells us to react with anger or indignation. It is the knowledge that not every battle is ours to fight, and that many confrontations, no matter how tempting, serve only to deplete our energy and diminish our focus on what truly matters. When we exercise restraint, we claim a higher ground that others cannot reach while they are trapped in the heat of their emotions. In that space, we become untouchable, not because we are invincible, but because we are deliberate, because we understand that responding to provocation is a transaction of power, and that by refusing to participate, we retain control over our own energy, our own mind, our own destiny. There is an art to restraint, a discipline that must be cultivated. It begins with awareness of our triggers, of the emotions that rise like a storm within us when we are insulted, challenged, or threatened. It requires observing ourselves in the moment, recognizing the surge of adrenaline, the desire to lash out, and then consciously choosing a different path. This path is not easy, for it runs against instinct. Our instincts are wired for immediate response, for fight or flight. But strength, real strength, is in breaking the automatic patterns that lead to conflict and chaos. It is in pausing, in breathing, in acknowledging the provocation without letting it dictate our actions. It is in creating a space between stimulus and response, and in that space lies freedom. In that space lies control. In that space lies power. When we exercise restraint, we also influence others in ways they may not immediately understand. Silence, when applied strategically, can speak louder than any words. A measured pause can turn the momentum of a confrontation. A refusal to engage can unsettle those who thrive on conflict because it defies their expectations. They expect reaction, they anticipate anger, they rely on provocation to gauge our strength. When we withhold it, when we rise above the bait, we communicate that our power is not measured by reaction, but by composure, by self-mastery, by the ability to maintain clarity of mind in the midst of chaos. This silent authority often commands more respect than aggression ever could because it is rooted in internal strength rather than external display. Consider the people in history who exemplified this principle. Those who faced relentless opposition, ridicule, and personal attacks, yet responded with patience, with focus, with deliberate action, rather than immediate retaliation. Their power was not in the battles they fought with fists or words, but in the control they maintained over themselves, in the restraint they exercised in moments when most would have exploded. They understood that every reaction expended energy, that every fight conceded a fragment of control to the provoker. By choosing restraint, they protected their energy, preserved their focus, and ensured that their actions carried far more weight because they were chosen, not impulsive. Restraint also shapes our internal world. When we allow ourselves to react to every slight, to every insult, to every injustice we perceive. We live in a state of perpetual agitation. Our minds are consumed by the energy of others' actions, our emotions dictated by forces outside our control. We are tossed about like leaves in a storm, constantly responding, constantly defending, constantly reacting. But when we practice restraint, we reclaim sovereignty over our inner life. We create a stable center that is not shaken by the provocations of the external world. We become self-directed, self-determined, and self-contained. Our peace of mind becomes our fortress, and within that fortress, we find clarity, strategy, and vision. The world may rage outside, but within, we are unassailable. There is also a strategic dimension to restraint that cannot be overstated. To fight every battle is to scatter our energy, to dilute our influence, to exhaust ourselves on conflicts that often do not matter in the larger scheme of our lives. By choosing where to engage and where to withhold our response, we conserve our resources for the battles that truly count, for the moments that define our legacy, for the actions that build rather than destroy. Restraint allows us to see the long game, to operate with patience and foresight, to recognize that immediate satisfaction is often the enemy of lasting success. Those who master restraint understand that power is not about proving yourself in the heat of the moment, but about achieving outcomes that matter, about shaping reality over time rather than reacting to it impulsively. And yet, restraint requires courage. It is easier to strike back, to release the pressure of anger through words or deeds, to satisfy the craving for immediate justice. Choosing silence, choosing inaction in the face of provocation, takes inner fortitude. It requires confidence in oneself, trust in one's judgment, and a deep understanding of the value of one's own energy and focus. It is an act of defiance against the expectations of the world, a refusal to participate in the cycles of conflict that ensnare so many. It is a declaration that our power is self-generated, not borrowed from the reactions of others, and that our worth is not validated by the need to respond, but by the discipline to rise above. Restraint transforms our relationships and interactions. Those who are quick to react often escalate situations, drawing themselves and others into a vortex of conflict that yields no resolution and often deepens misunderstandings. Those who practice restraint, however, create space for reflection, dialogue, and perspective. They allow tempers to cool, egos to settle, and minds to clarify. They model behavior that encourages others to mirror their composure, fostering an environment where reason can prevail over impulse, where strategy can triumph over chaos, and where influence is earned through presence rather than dominance. Ultimately, the power of restraint lies in its paradox. To the outside observer, choosing not to react may appear as weakness or indifference, but in truth, it is the mark of strength, of self-mastery, of profound understanding of human behavior. It signals a mind untethered by emotion, a heart unshaken by provocation, and a spirit that operates according to its own principles rather than the whims of others. It is a power that is quiet, that does not announce itself, that does not need to be validated through confrontation, yet it shapes outcomes more decisively than any argument, any fight, any impulsive response ever could. Redirecting your energy into deliberate action and self-mastery transforms every provocation into an opportunity for growth. Most people expend their power on reactions, on responding to insults, challenges, criticisms, and distractions, allowing external forces to dictate their emotional state, their decisions, and ultimately, the trajectory of their lives. When we choose instead to channel that energy intentionally, we reclaim control over our inner world and direct it toward meaningful outcomes. Deliberate action is the antidote to chaos, the bridge between impulse and purpose, and the tool through which true influence is wielded without the need for confrontation or argument. It begins with awareness of our energy, the recognition that our attention and effort are finite resources, and the understanding that what we do with them defines the quality of our lives far more than the actions of others ever could. Every provocation, every attempt to draw us into conflict presents a choice. We can allow it to hijack our focus, dominate our thoughts, and trigger reactive behavior, or we can respond with intention, using the moment as a catalyst for improvement rather than distraction. Redirecting energy is not passive, it is an active process of decision-making. It requires discipline to resist the magnetic pull of reaction, patience to wait for the right course of action, and clarity to determine where our efforts will produce the greatest effect. This is self-mastery in action, a conscious exercise of will that prioritizes growth, results, and personal development over fleeting satisfaction or the temporary thrill of retaliation. The practice of deliberate action also strengthens resilience. When we redirect our energy, instead of reacting impulsively, we build the capacity to withstand pressure, criticism, and hostility without being destabilized. We cultivate mental fortitude, learning to maintain equilibrium in the face of external turbulence. This is a form of power that is quiet but undeniable, a presence that commands respect because it demonstrates control rather than aggression. People who react impulsively may create noise, but those who act deliberately produce results. They are guided not by the whims of emotion, but by strategy and foresight. By redirecting energy in this way, we convert moments of potential conflict into stepping stones toward achievement, turning obstacles into opportunities and challenges into lessons. Self-mastery, a key component of this approach, involves rigorous self-awareness. It demands that we understand our emotional triggers, our patterns of reaction, and the habitual ways in which we expend energy. By examining our impulses, we gain insight into the mechanics of our responses and learn to intervene before reaction occurs. This intervention is not suppression, but transformation. It is the conscious decision to translate potential chaos into constructive action. When we master ourselves in this way, we are no longer slaves to provocation. We no longer allow the behavior of others to dictate our internal state. Instead, we operate from a place of intentionality where every thought, every decision, and every action is aligned with our higher goals and values. Redirecting energy also allows us to prioritize long-term outcomes over short-term gratification. Immediate reactions often provide a sense of relief or validation, but they rarely advance our larger objectives. Deliberate action, by contrast, focuses our efforts on what truly matters, on what yields lasting results, rather than temporary satisfaction. It requires patience, strategic thinking, and the willingness to endure discomfort in the moment for the sake of a greater gain. This approach transforms how we navigate interpersonal dynamics, challenges, and even crises. By choosing action over reaction, we preserve our energy, strengthen our resolve, and increase our capacity to influence situations in meaningful ways. Furthermore, redirecting energy into self-mastery enhances creativity and problem-solving. When we are not consumed by reaction, our minds are free to analyze, to innovate, and to envision solutions that are often invisible to those trapped in the cycle of retaliation. Deliberate action opens mental space for insight, allowing us to respond to challenges with precision rather than emotion, with strategy rather than instinct. It transforms adversity into an arena for excellence, where composure and foresight replace impulsivity and frustration. The ability to remain unshaken by provocation and to channel energy toward productive action distinguishes those who succeed from those who merely survive. This approach also cultivates influence without aggression. People are drawn to those who act with clarity, purpose, and self-discipline. By redirecting energy instead of reacting, we demonstrate confidence, intelligence, and emotional control. Others sense our composure and gravitate toward it, seeking guidance, alliance, or simply respecting the boundary we maintain around our energy. The silent authority we project through deliberate action has a weight far greater than that of someone who must constantly assert themselves through reaction, argument, or confrontation. It is subtle yet profoundly effective. Every decision to redirect energy reinforces a cycle of empowerment. Each moment we resist the urge to fight back and instead channel our efforts toward growth and action strengthens our self-discipline and builds our internal power. Over time, this practice reshapes our life trajectory. Situations that once provoked anger, resentment, or impulsive responses become opportunities for learning, for creativity, for strategic progress. Life itself becomes less reactive and more intentional, less about being buffeted by circumstance and more about shaping circumstance to align with our purpose. Deliberate action also fosters emotional resilience. By choosing how to respond to provocations, we reduce the emotional volatility that undermines decision-making, strains relationships, and erodes self-confidence. We create a stable internal environment in which clarity of thought and consistency of behavior prevail. This stability allows us to approach challenges calmly, to assess situations with detachment, and to act in ways that maximize impact rather than squander energy on unnecessary conflict. Emotional mastery becomes a natural byproduct of this practice, reinforcing the power of self-control and the effectiveness of intentional action. In essence, redirecting energy into deliberate action and self-mastery is about reclaiming sovereignty over our own lives. It is about understanding that power is not a function of reaction but of choice. It is about realizing that every provocation, every attempt to pull us into conflict, is an opportunity to demonstrate our discipline, to assert our independence from external manipulation, and to build the kind of character that commands respect effortlessly. By mastering this practice, we transform the way we interact with the world, turning potential chaos into opportunities for excellence and proving that the greatest victories are those achieved without confrontation